What do you genuinely just not understand? How the Voyager 1 is 12 billion miles away from Earth and we can still receive data from it, and my router doesn't work even though it's in the room next door. Your router is talking in a very busy frequency range. It's like trying to have a conversation at a rock concert. There are also rules around how loud you can talk, and often devices like microwaves yell loudly while running. You also don't know where your friends is, so you can't cup your mouth to direct your voice more, although newer routers do this with beamforming. Voyager 1 is doing basically the opposite. It's a long way away but talking in a quieter room with a dish to direct its voice. How a computer is really just electric pulses going on and off, binary, and yet it can do all these things. How we store and recall memories. In fact, really just the whole human mind. The human mind confuses my human mind, if you will. Agreed. I can recall little movies about experiences I've had in my life 30 years ago. How is that stored? My brain is just a collection of cells. Do longer memories take up more cells? Do I run out of storage? Do I tape over old memories? I have a memory of me walking through the park as a child. But the memory is in third person, like I see myself walking towards myself. I think it's because we had a photo from the day/memory. So I'm remembering the photo mix with the actual memory. Myself. Why do you overthink things and procrastinate so much, you dumb F? The overthinking things is especially prevalent in my life right now, and I'm hoping I don't screw things up, and wish I'd made a different decision down the road. One of the best things I was ever told is, you can only do what you can, with the information you have available at that time. This helped me relieve a lot of uncertainty and guilt, and definitely regret. Now, as long as I make decisions based on what my heart feels is the best one at that time, I don't ever have regrets. If I get new information down the road and it changes things, fine, reevaluate, adjust, and move forwards, but you won't have regrets. Why do they sew the pockets in women's pants shut? People who can ask for proof of something, get it, have it logically explained, and they still refuse to even consider that they might be wrong. How data flies through the air and lands on the device that it's intended for. For example, you're on your cell phone right next to another person on their cell phone, and you're both getting the data you're expecting. Seems like this stuff would be hitting us in the head. Life in general. Like, what the F am I doing here? Is this it? Are we just supposed to wake up, go to work, then go back to bed, then we die? No, find something that brings you joy and make it happen. My blender sparks joy for me. Willpower. How are some people so freaking good at controlling themselves? Even controlling emotions is hard. I angry cry in debates sometimes without realizing. How somebody can speak to you every day for several months and then just start ignoring without reason, never to speak to you ever again. I have no idea how to approach someone and tell them I'm interested in getting to know them better. Ask them out on a date essentially. Hey, want to grab coffee sometime, you know? Ask one of our culturally accepted date questions. If they're as interested as you are, they'll recognize it and its intent, and go for it. If not, they won't go for it. Edit, I'm not talking about doing this with complete strangers. How to romance. 1. Click on the sim. 2. Go to more choices. 3. Hit the romance section. Crusader Kings 2. I have 600 plus hours of my life invested in this game, and I still really don't even know how to play. Polygamy. I have nothing against it and I admittedly haven't done that much reading on it. Just the idea of dealing with more than one person stresses me out mentally. Family trees and terms associated with it. Like, if my mum's cousin has a child, what are they to me? What is my mum's cousin to me? How some people are really out there named Bartholomew. My son has a far more sophisticated name, Bort. Excuse me, my son is also named Bort. How vast the universe is. Magnets. How do they work? There's like the Earth. And waves. And F. Quantum physics, I guess. Quantum physics is basically looking at objects and events at a progressively smaller scale until you get existential crisis. The objects get existential crises as well. People who play music loudly. Like, are you doing it just to flex your music taste on strangers? Edit. I mean people who do it in public, like in the public transport and like ridiculously loud. I don't see any problem if you do it in your home or if it's a concert. I'm with you. Where I live, people will drive up to a convenience store with the windows down blasting music. They then get out of the car and go inside still with the music blasting. I might have thought that was cool at 16, but I would have turned it off when I left the car. People who are rude to retailers. People who are rude for no reason in general. Why the fridge remains empty after giving it 5 minutes since you last opened the door and stood looking. Why I always need to do the dishes. How to like being around people again. I used to have lots of friends as a kid, but I spent a lot of time by myself in high school and I find I like being by myself most days now. But even I get lonely, but I don't really know how to reach out to people anymore. How two-faced people can be. Ever since I graduated high school and transitioned into adulthood, I've noticed how quick people are to talk about you behind your back, and then treat you like their greatest friend like it's nothing. It's only caused trust issues for me. I've heard people say, in order to be happy you have to not let negative thing bother you, but what does that even mean? If something devastating happens to you, you can't just turn off your sadness like a robot, and switch them to happy. You can't help how you feel. Extroverts. People who pick up a product at a store, then place it right back down in the wrong spot. Flat earthers. I think it's just that natural human desire to feel special. Nothing makes you feel more special than knowing the truth when everyone else refuses to see. Same thing that makes hipsters hate anything mainstream or drives the not like other girls culture. The phrase, by the way, I understand what it means, but why do those words mean that? I don't get it. Think of it as, by the wayside. It's somewhat archaic, but if you imagine your point as a way or road, by the way means a slight diversion from the main drive of your argument. How images are made on a screen. Or how photos are taken. I've had it explained to me in detail. My brain just doesn't get it. Edit. I know what pixels are. It's the ones and zeros turning into pixels is confusing. Alright, so analog photos are actually super easy to understand. You've basically got a piece of transparent film that's completely littered with lots and lots of tiny little magical balls. Every one of these magical balls turns dark when light shines on them, and the more light they get, the darker they become. In the camera, this film is hidden from the outside world, keeping the little magical balls all clear and transparent, until it's time to take a picture. When you press the shutter, the camera opens a door in front of the film, and light travels from the outside world, through the lens, which bends the rays of light into an image, and onto the film, and the magical balls. Basically you now have a perfect projection of the outside world inside of the camera, exactly where the little magic balls are. Now, the magical balls where a lot of light hits turn very dark, while magical balls where no light hits remain transparent. After a split second the door closes, and the roll of film advances one frame to allow for the next picture to be taken. Now when you're done with taking your photos and you're taking the film to be developed, they throw the transparent film, with the darkened magical balls, into a vat of chemicals, which takes the magic out of the balls. The balls will now forever stay whichever darkness they have. No amount of extra light will make them darker. You now have an inverted image on your film, with dark parts where a lot of light hit, and transparent parts where there was nothing. Then further magic turns that inverted image into a proper image. Computers can do this really easily. Now, for digital cameras, the exact same thing applies. Except instead of magical balls that get dark when light hits them, you have a grid of magical light sensors that emit a voltage depending on how much light hits it. These voltage levels are then read by a computer inside the camera and stored as grid. This grid of voltage levels is what an digital image is. It's JPGs and PNGs and stuff like that. A digital monitor then is just like a digital camera sensor, except in reverse. Instead of a grid of magical sensors, it's a grid of lamps. So for each lamp, pixel, on your monitor, it checks the corresponding voltage value in the saved image grid, and then emits that much light. Do this enough time, with a big enough grid, and you've displayed a picture.